Hi everybody, Andrew Cuneo here, and today we're going to be going back to an old favorite, Tainted Pact in Historic. For those of you who don't know, I've made a bunch of videos on this deck. It's an almost singleton deck in Historic that's based off the Tainted Pact Jace Wielder of Mysteries combo, which I'll explain in a second. And I like coming back to it because the fact that it's a singleton deck means that every set you can look to pick up tiny additions. And with the release of Kamigawa, I wanted to see, well, what cards could I try out in this deck? And we're going to make a couple revisions to the deck to add some Kamigawa cards and then go ahead and give it a try. Just a quick explanation of how the deck works. It's singleton, except there's 2 copies of Tainted Pact, which allows you to... You keep flipping over cards off the top of your deck until you hit a card you like or until you see a duplicated card. If you see a duplicated card that spells over, you get nothing. If you see a card you like, you just get to take it, and all the cards you passed along the way are exiled. Or you can also just choose to exile your entire deck as long as there are no duplicate cards left in your deck at the time you cast this, which is what we're trying to set up for here. We're going to use the passive ability of Jace Wielder of Mysteries that if you would draw a card while your library is empty, you win the game instead. So that's a 2-card combo that wins. In order to execute the combo, you have to have drawn a Tainted Pact and drawn a Jace Wielder of Mysteries. Once you get to that point, you can play Tainted Pact and just exile your deck. If you draw 2 Tainted Pacts and you haven't seen a Jace Wielder of Mysteries yet, you could play the first Tainted Pact, use it to find a Jace Wielder of Mysteries, then play the second Tainted Pact and exile your deck to set up a win. There are some more complicated lines than that sometimes, but basically your goal is to get a Jace and a Tainted Pact in your hand, play your Tainted Pact to exile your deck, play your Jace to win the game. Surrounding that, this is basically a singleton blue-black control deck. There's a fair amount of discard because you do need to fight through permission because you're trying to resolve a key spell. And then some creature removal. I've gone over all of this in more detail in previous videos. I'm not going to go over all that ground again. But let's get to the exciting part. What Kamigawa cards can be added? And for starters, there's the lands, which I think are... Let's start with Otawara. The lands are the easy ones. We're getting new legendary lands that don't really have any drawbacks, so you can just slot them in for any of the lands you don't like in the deck, which that was always one of the problems with this deck, was you had to play too many clunky lands. If you look at the mana base, there's a lot of, like, a green-blue pathway, which you don't have any green cards. This is just in the deck because it's an untapped blue land. So as more and more sets have gotten printed, I've been able to get rid of more and more of the suboptimal lands. We've got 2 more new lands that should be easy inclusions. So this is mostly just going to be an island in this deck. You could occasionally use this channel ability. It's really expensive for Historic. I don't think it's going to come up all that much. But I do think that it's an upgrade to Soaring Vision. Because Soaring Vision, it did have this ability that you could dig through your deck to maybe find a Tainted Pact, but it was just really expensive for Historic. You wound up playing it as a land most of the time, and it was just comes into play tapped island. So I think swapping Soaring Vision for Otawara, pretty clear upgrade. Then we've got Takenuma. Now this one, really, the channel ability, I guess you can use it to get back Jace, so maybe it's not completely nothing, but it's really expensive for Historic, and you just don't have very many targets in the deck, so it's not even going to be something that you could use all that often. But it is a swamp that's always going to come into play untapped. I think the worst black land in this deck is actually Castle Lochthwain. The ability on Castle Lochthwain is occasionally relevant, but the deck just doesn't have that many lands that count as swamps, so it comes into play black land a lot of the time. The other possibility to replace with Takenuma would be one of the comes into play blue-black dual land, or comes into play tapped blue-black dual lands. So, like, there's a Zagoth Triome, Temple of Deceit, Fetid Pools is pretty good. So one of those lands. But the thing is, the way this combo works, you need access to triple blue mana. And you're also trying to cast double black spells. So you actually really do want your blue-black dual lands. So I think I'm going to cut Castle Locthwain and switch it for a Takenuma. That one, it's less clear that that's a pure upgrade or an upgrade at all, but I think it's worth trying. I think that was the worst of the swamps. There's one basic swamp and one snow-covered swamp. You can't play more than one basic land of any type. So having the snow-covered lands helps you a lot, but you can't play more basic swamps. That's kind of why the Takenuma is an upgrade. Then there was another card I considered, the Black March. Where is it? March of Wretched Sorrow. It's potentially a very cheap removal spell. It is a way to gain life, which could matter a little bit. I don't think this card is good enough. It's competing with cards like Fatal Push, Bloodchief's Thirst, even Baleful Mastery. Baleful Mastery is pretty nice in Historic because it can exile, and you can also play it for a low mana cost. Baleful Mastery is kind of similar to March of Wretched Sorrow in that you're trading card disadvantage for efficiency. I think the Baleful Mastery is better. There's also the minor combo of Baleful Mastery plus Narset, which you'll occasionally get those two cards together, and you can just play this for 2 mana with no drawback. So I think I'm not going to try March of Wretched Sorrow. There's one other card that I think is probably of interest, and that's the Reckoner Bankbuster. This would be as a sideboard card against control decks. I think I'm going to cut the Malevolent Hermit from the sideboard for it, which Malevolent Hermit is a really good card. I think Reckoner Bankbuster might be even better, though. So those are the changes I'm going to make. Really pretty subtle additions. I don't know if I covered the additions from Alchemy. I don't think I made a video after Alchemy was released. So Forsaken Crossroads was another excellent land upgrade. I think this might have been the one that allowed me to finally get Dismal Backwater out of the deck. And then I'm going to be trying Key to the Archive. I haven't actually tried this one in the deck yet, but there are some really good hits. If you hit Demonic Tutor, that's great for setting up your combo. If you hit Counterspell, that's generally a good card. The removal spells are going to be fine. Pretty much, you basically always get a good card off of Key to the Archive. And it's also mana ramp and color fixing in a deck that you do sometimes want to get to 6 mana so you can play Jace and Tainted Pact all in one turn. So the ability to tap for mana is definitely relevant on Key to the Archive in this deck. All right, let's go ahead and give it a try. This is an okay hand. The best hands for this deck are obviously going to be ones where you just have Jace and Tainted Pact in your starting hand. Those, it's pretty easy to set up the combo. Barring that, it's certainly nice to have at least one piece in your hand, because then you have a pretty clear game plan. Guessing, I mean, this is going to be pretty obviously a Goblin deck, so there's not going to be a reason I'd want to have access to Mystical Dispute. On their second turn, they're not going to be playing a blue card, I would imagine. All right, they're off to a fairly fast start. I'm probably just going to be able to kill them, though. Because I can, even though they have the Skirk Prospector, I can probably play Censor to reasonable effect on this turn. And then next turn, Mystical Dispute is a possibility if I'm worried I'm going to die. If I'm not going to die, I can just end of turn Tainted Pact, get rid of almost all of my deck, and then untap, play Jace, and win with it. So if they cast Muxus this turn, maybe I would counter it. Probably I would. It seems like if the opponent was willing to do this, they should have done it before they attacked, because they would deal more damage. Alright, it's been a while since I played this deck. I have been known to kill myself in spots like this. When you play this Tainted Pact, you need to leave yourself a card to draw when you untap. So I need to go down to 1 card left in my library. I could also go down to 2 cards left in my library. And then the Jace is going to mill them. I could actually go down to 3 cards left. I need between 1 and 3 cards left in my library when I finish casting this Tainted Pact. Also, it's a little bit confusing when you play this deck. If you look here, it says 29 cards, and then is Narset in those 29 cards? It's not. It's exiling the top card of the deck, not revealing the top card of the deck and choosing whether or not to exile it. Otherworldly Gaze. It's been a while since I played a deck that had Otherworldly Gaze in it. What are we doing? 9 cards left. For people who don't know, this Tainted Pact deck is the reason that Thassa's Oracle is banned in Historic. It used to be the case that you would just do this combo with Thassa's Oracle instead of Jace, and it made the deck really, really way too good. They do have access to 2 mana. I don't think there's anything they could reasonably have here that would stop me from winning. So I'm assuming that they're just straight up creature deck. I think I want all of my removal for creatures. Maybe not Shadow's Verdict. Probably even Shadow's Verdict. Shadow's Verdict's a little bit awkward against some builds of goblins because the goblins you care about the most are sometimes Muxus or Krenko, and it doesn't hit those. But some of the versions don't even play Krenko anymore. All right, we picked out a ton of cards to board in, but there's a lot of counters that are in the deck that are just never going to be relevant against a goblin deck. Certainly like Duress, Spell Pierce. I think I want to play more like a control deck, so I usually take out Otherworldly Gaze if I'm going to be more of a control deck. Thoughtseize is generally pretty good against goblins. We got to find 3 more cuts. Commit's pretty expensive. Memory Leak may look like it's a really bad card, but it does cycle. And it's kind of important to have access to cycling cards in some board states where you're going to play your Jace. You're going to try to draw a card. They're going to kill it in response, and then you're going to need to cycle to draw a second card in order to trigger the Jace again. 1 more card to cut. I could cut the Wishclaw Talisman, I guess. Yeah, the Wishclaw Talisman's pretty good against people that are bad at interacting with the combo. I guess I could just cut this Narset. Usually I don't wind up boarding out Narset when I board in all of my creature removal, but the fact that my opponent's playing a deck that Ether Gust is good against meant that I had a little bit more removal than normal. One other thing about sideboarding with this deck, you'll notice I brought in a Leer and a God Eternal Kefnet. I generally like in the sideboarded games having access to additional ways to win that aren't just the combo. Especially when you're playing on the ladder and you don't really know what your opponent could have in the sideboard. It's nice to have some different ways to try to win. So I've drawn 2 of these pathways. These are just in my deck as islands. There's nothing fancy about them. They boarded in Scorching Dragonfire. That is really optimistic. So I'll let them draw the Scorching Dragonfire, and then I'm going to gust the Snoop in their draw step, which means they're not going to be able to go land Goblin Warchief, and also they're not going to be able to recast the Snoop this turn. Here, the Castle Vantress got to come into play untapped because I drew one of my islands. I have a snow-covered island, I have a basic island, I have a watery grave, and I have a Zaggoth Triome. So I know there's a War Chief coming. I guess they're not even going to be able to play the War Chief because they missed their land drop. I guess I can probably just combo kill them. They have the Scorching Dragonfire, which can do a little bit to the Jace, but not enough to kill it. Doesn't matter, they've tapped out. It's really easy to win games like that where you draw the Tainted Pact and the Jace. The hard games are the ones where you don't really find the combo for a long time and you have to fight to stay alive. Because you are playing a sort of unfocused control deck at that point. Don't have my third blue yet, which is a little bit awkward because I drew 2 triple blue cards. Right, this is probably just blue-white control. It's got Mind Stone in it. It's a blast from the past. Mind Stone used to see a fair amount of play in like blue-white to fairy control kind of decks. I think most people have switched to basing their deck on stifles now. Okay, it turns out they're just playing a completely different deck than what I thought. They're a blue-white artifacts deck, not a blue-white control deck. There we go. We're seeing dividends from the Otawara. If that had been a Solundi Isle, it would have come into play tapped, and we wouldn't be getting to commit this Golos. If you look in the mana base, there's a tiny amount of white mana in the deck. Yeah, no lands that just tap for white, but there's the blue-white and the black-white pathway. There's also one Hollowed Fountain. So it is possible to play the cleaved version of Path of Peril. I'll get to start playing this for some value. It's not just a combo piece. I do need to be a little bit careful now because I do have my other Jace in the graveyard. So if this Jace dies, it's going to become tricky for my deck to win. There are some ways to still be able to do it. I could memory to get the Jaces back into my deck. Also, now with the addition of Takenuma, I could use Takenuma to rebuild my ability to combo. It's kind of nice. I maybe should have Jace milled them. Didn't fully grasp that they were about to draw the Golos again. I don't know that I really care about the Golos that much, but presumably they've got a reason to have it in their deck, and they're going to get some land that's going to be good. It's just Cascading Cataracts. It's not that good. I guess we'll start by Jacing myself again. If I mill both my Tainted Pacts, it becomes a little bit awkward, but I'm generally not a fan of just juicing up my opponent's graveyard in Historic. A lot of the time that leads to bad things for you. Maybe it's safe against this deck. Maybe a blue-white artifacts deck isn't going to have anything in the graveyard. But against an unknown opponent, I generally don't want to just start filling their graveyard. Most people have some way to get some advantage out of their graveyard. This is not the Karn that shuts down my Mazemind Tome. It's the other Karn. Alright, let's see if we can find a demonic tutor. Come on, demonic tutor. D-Spark. Guess that's an answer to the Karn if I care about killing Karn. I'm getting close to being able to use the -8 ability, which would not win the game outright, but drawing 7 cards would be nice. It's Eugene. Alright, this game just got a lot harder. Alright, I'm going to set up a Narset memory. Perhaps over the course of 2 turns, they can get this Karn the Great Creator out of their graveyard. That's the Takenuma that I can use to get back my Jace, but I think they're just going to get their Karn back. It won't be good for me to have the Jace. I think I'm gonna need to find some more things that kill planeswalkers. I held the Narset in my hand because I didn't actually want them. I don't want them using Karn to get an answer to the Narset. Can you tap for mana with these things? No. More Golosin. And they got a Hall of Storm Giants. That's a little scary. I think I actually want both of those. They're going to have the ability to use Hall of Storm Giants to kill my Narset. It uses most of their turn, though. I don't think they have any. They have something they want that has a silver counter on it. A Blast Zone. Okay. I can still cast the memory. It's a lot less appealing now that the Narset is dead. Might still do it, though. I think I should still do it. Can also potentially win with my own Hall of Storm Giants or Shark Typhoon. Those are both options. I managed to exile a surprising number of cards this game. Their own Narset. I'll counter that. Doesn't feel great. It feels like they're probably baiting me, but it also, at this point, I would think I would probably want to counter both of the things I could get by minusing it. The statue. I'm going to go for a cycled Shark Typhoon to hopefully get this Karn off the board. Didn't want to just hard cast the Shark Typhoon because I know they have Eugene in their deck. This can stop me from cycling the Shark Typhoon. It's kind of awkward. Should I just do it now? Named Wishclaw Talisman. Does that mean that they're not going to be able to kill the shark? That the Karn is actually doomed? I guess I also have the Hall of Storm Giants, so I probably could have killed the Karn if I really wanted to. Anyway. So many Goloses. This one I think has probably gotten away from me. Maybe not. They haven't, for all of the nonsense stuff they've put into play, they haven't actually found anything that breaks up my combo yet. Narset claims another victim. They have a lot of Planeswalkers in their deck. A lot. I think they maybe don't realize that I can't tap the Key to the Archive for mana because of their Karn. And 8/8 Karnstruct. They also probably could have given me a beating I wouldn't soon forget with Karn the Great Creator. Oh, did they Karn the Great Creator for the Spyglass this turn? No, that was last turn. They just didn't use this Karn. They could have turned this into a 6/6, and that would have been a beating I wouldn't soon forget. So I can threaten to use the Hollow Storm Giants on defense. Just Bloodchief's Thirst the Karnstruct. Do I need to kill one of these Planeswalkers? Basically just in stall and pray for a Jace off the top of my deck mode. I could Tainted Pact and just hope to find something with the Tainted Pact, but realistically, I need to combo to win. I'm not going to win through valuing my opponent. Also, I only have one Jace left in my deck. I don't have enough mana. I don't have enough mana to go Tainted Pact for Jace. Maybe I should play the Tainted Pact end of turn anyway. I'm just going to take either the Jace or the Tainted Pact. I guess then I don't win. If I just find the Jace, though, I don't really set myself up to win. I just get the Jace in my hand, and then I need to draw my other Tainted Pact. And if I Tainted Pact and I hit the Tainted Pact, I guess the odds of drawing the Jace have gone up at that point, so maybe it actually helps me slightly. It seems worse, though, than just using Castle Vantress and casting Cling to Dust. This one has been a slog. They're going for the second round of Golusing this turn. They're using Teferi, who does something to the Sunset. Teferi, who slows the Sunset, has untapped Cascading Cataract, so they can Golus a second time with it. Now we've got a different Tezzeret. much time has passed this game? They've used 12 minutes. I've used 10. This has just been a long game. Nobody's playing slow. It's just... this game has gotten out of hand. Hopefully they don't have anything like Disruption Protocol in their deck or any sort of counter. They haven't played. They've seen a lot of cards, and I haven't seen a single card like that out of their deck. Which makes me feel like they probably don't have them in their deck. But certainly, if they've got one of those in their hand, I just can't win the game. I'm going to exile from my graveyard just to make the Drown in the Loch a little bit better. Pact of Negation. Is that an interesting card to have drawn? Not really. You are not the ones I need. And it's nighttime. Maybe I could deck them. They only have 19 cards left. Tormod's Crypt. Sure. They can get rid of my Cling to Dust, but I was just gonna use Castle Vantress anyway. I'm about to receive a beating from the Cold Steel Heart. Do have the Hall of Storm Giants, which could block it. I think if I'm forced to use mana to do that, though, I don't get to scry with Castle Vantress, probably. Hopefully they don't want to just attack. All right. I do not wish to draw Key to the Archive again, so that one needs to be scried to the bottom. I think at this point it's not even worth killing the Golos. I think the damage has been done. Guess I can counter this. They have another Fateful Absence. This was bad. Maybe this was just bad. Ooh. It was just bad. That was real bad. Come on, Jace off the top. Only you can save me. Oh, actually, I'm dead on board. They can just bolt me with Eugene. And then I die to the ping from the God Pharaoh's statue. Sweet. I've never had a game like that before with this deck. So they're like, I guess you would say they're kind of a tap out control deck. Which of these kill planeswalkers? None of them. Brazen Barber's pretty good against planeswalkers. Bankbuster's probably fine. Lear's potentially fine. Cards I do not want. Certainly Path of Peril was awful. So was Languish. There were some targets for Fatal Push, but it was pretty bad overall. Alright, let's just go with it like that. Do I want an Infernal Grasp to kill Golos? It's really narrow. I think I like all my other cards better. I have a Nezahal. I'm going to take this Karn, and then I'm going to Spell Pierce the Cold Steel Heart. I'm going to exile a card from my graveyard again because I'm trying to keep my Drown in the Lock powered up, potentially. It will delay the point at which I can get to flashback Cling the Test, but that's okay. This is the somewhat slightly awkward interaction of having Lear in your deck with a bunch of counters. I think it's still fine, though. I thought they were going to minus this to get a lands to play a Teferi. I guess they drew a Teferi. Should have played Cling to Dust on my turn. I'm not used to the nerfed version of Lear. Ugh. Brutal. Now what? I guess recycling. They have 4 cards in their graveyard. Oh, but the top card of my deck is this Leer. That's not good. How did things go so wrong? So if they have an untapped land, they can just play Ugin, and it will be bad for me. If they don't have an untapped land, I'll actually win. They can just get an untapped land with the Karn. This really went bad fast. Yeah, I lose. I think we're going to get a swamp turn 1. So I can play Thoughtseize and a tap land, probably. Oh, they're Merfolk. It would have been good to be able to Mystical Dispute. Mystical Dispute will still be great. It probably wouldn't have been a good idea to Mystical Dispute the Shoreline Scout anyway. I got a Fistful of Lords. I'll dispute the first Lord they play, just to slow them down. Obviously, I have the Languish. The Languish will be good eventually. The Trickster's a little bit awkward, the fact that they can play it as an instant. So I'm going to take 2, and then next turn I'll take 10. It's a big number. Am I okay with taking 10? Do I want to be able to cast Commit? I guess I'll just keep access to Commit. I have enough lands in play that probably it won't hurt me too much to cast the Wishclaw Talisman at some point. This is bad. This means they have Collected Company. How do I beat Collected Company? I don't know how that worked, why they chose to respond there. That was about one of the only ways I could have won. That or the company just bricking somehow. The reason I went into full control here and did this in response to the Jace activation is in case they have a card that bounces the Jace, they might choose to let the Tainted Pact resolve and then have me try to have me die from the Jace trigger. And if they do that, then in response I could opt. If in response to them casting Tainted Pact, they bounced the Jace, then I would just change my decision about how I cast Tainted Pact. This is just a play all the removal spells kind of matchup. And then replay them with the Leer. Mystical Dispute is great. Commit's kind of bad. Don't like Otherworldly Gaze. Don't like Spell Pierce. Don't like Negate. Don't like Thought Erasure. I don't really like having Wishclaw Talisman in my deck in post-board games when I know my opponent is just going to be able to tutor for things that counter my combo. Because once you don't want to be forced to only be able to use the talisman the turn you're going to win. It's nice to be able to just safely use the first counter and then give it to them and know that they're not going to get something that's going to be absolutely backbreaking. If they get a chance to use it, what else do I not need? I guess I can take out Memory Leak. And Duress. Sand might be a little bit on the slow side, given that I'm on the draw and I don't have any actual removal spells yet. I also don't even have double blue. I could maybe go for a Fortune Favors the Bold kind of play, and end of turn just Tainted Pact to try to hit Path of Peril, depending on what their board looks like. Doing things like that is pretty dangerous because you can wind up not even getting a card at all if you hit your combo like 2 Jaces or 2, well, just 2 Jaces. If you hit 2 Jaces before you find the Path of Peril, then you just don't even get a card. But I'm going to die if I don't do that, so let's do it. I think it would be good if I had another mana. So now it's 50-50 as to whether I find the Path of Peril before the second Jace. It's also possible that my deck could be in an order where, like, Path of Peril is really close to the bottom and there's a Jace underneath of it, but I don't leave myself with enough deck left to win. Also, I hit my other Tainted Pact. Okay, I lose. So I wasn't going... even if I had found the Path of Peril before the Jace, I wouldn't have a Tainted Pact left in my deck to exile my deck. So there was a lot of things that could have gone wrong there, and we saw one of them go wrong. The upside was if I had found the Path of Peril, I actually would have been in really good shape to win. So it was a high-risk, high-reward play that failed. This is a much stronger hand. I'm going to just leave in the Spell Pierce and try to play around it. Also, Spell Pierce does not do anything about God Eternal Kefnet, which is nice. Let's get this thing online so that it flips faster, and also I find my second blue, which it can eventually provide me my second blue. This is one of my all-time favorite cards, and it just doesn't even see that much play anymore. Also, the Wind Robber is just powering it up. It is a removal spell. I guess I'll keep it. Why did they sack the Lord? I'm not sure I understand why they did that. I'm just going to let this hit me again because it's just making the search for Azcanta better. I think they'll probably just let the Grasp resolve on the Silvergill Adept. Either way, I just want the card in my graveyard. I don't really care if this resolves or not. Good old God Eternal Kefnet. God Eternal Kefnet's arch nemesis when it was in Standard was 3 mana Teferi, because 3 mana Teferi shut down its whole ability. 4 mana Teferi does not shut it down nearly as hard, like the new Teferi Time Raveler. So it's nice that that they've printed the new type Fairy Time Raveler, so now maybe God Eternal Kefnet can get some vengeance on it for ruining its time and standard. They are going to need to draw a lot of collected companies if they want to have a shot at winning. Why did they do this? I guess they didn't. It hadn't been revealed yet that it was going to be a Drown in the Loch for them. I guess that's maybe why they did it. I don't know. But the way that they played it meant I get to cast my free Drown in the Loch on their 2-power creature instead of their 1-power creature. Seems good for me, bad for them. Sure. Oh, they could have Tezzeretted. They could have trickstered the God Eternal Kefnet. I don't know why I just said Tezzeret. In my upkeep to turn it off. Interesting. I think I'm going to kill this, even though their best draws are certainly companies which the Drown in the Loch would do something against. I'm seeing if they want to use their Spell Pierce here. I don't think I need this spell to resolve. And the Spell Pierce is kind of awkward because I haven't drawn that many lands. My plan was to literally just take any spell that I thought would do anything. I don't need to do my combo at all this game. The Kefnet's just going to kill them. Between Kefnet and Azcanta, they're not going to have a lot of luck trying to kill me with creatures, I would say. Let's see if we hit something we want to play for free off of God Eternal Kefnet. They may have a collected company in their hand at this point. They're trying to figure out the right time to cast it. I don't know why they're looking at their graveyard. Maybe because I just looked at the graveyard and wanted to see what I was looking at. Quandrix Command. Holy cow. All right. They have Mystical Dispute, maybe? They have a Kamana Speaker. Kamena Speaker. If your guess was Kamena Speaker, you would have gotten it right. I'm playing this game very cautiously from this point, just because I think that the only real way for me to get into trouble is if I run my Kefnet into Mystical Dispute. Silver Gill Adepts. Censor off the top? No. Censor off the top? No. Oh, there's a Narset in play anyway. That'll do it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I think this is one of the most fun decks to play in Historic. You get a lot of just crazy games. There's a lot of complicated lines of play to learn. I'd really encourage people to try it out if you're looking for a fun deck. It's probably not literally tier 1 in Historic. I've wanted to play it at set championships in the past and have always eventually decided that it wasn't quite good enough. But it is very good. It's not as good as like Green Black Food or playing Phoenix or maybe playing a blue white field deck, but I think that it's probably, you know, a tier or maybe a half a tier below those decks. And the other thing that's really nice about it is because it's a singleton deck, if you've just been playing Arena for a while, you should just passively have acquired a lot of the cards that are used in it. And there's certainly substitutions that can be made for a lot of the cards. The only thing you really need is you need to have 2 Tainted Pacts and 2 Jace Wielder of Mysteries, and you're going to want to have 1 copy of each of the good dual lands. So like a Watery Grave, Clearwater Pathway, etc. That's it for now, and I'll see you guys next time.